All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for waiting patiently. Just to not take too much of anyone's time, we'll go ahead and start. Before we start, what I'd like to do is I just want to introduce myself real quick. I then have special guests with us in person and on the call, so I'll have them introduce themselves as well. Then we're going to run through the program, timeline, focus areas, and then, of course, our in-depth session today on in-flight. And then we're going to open the room for Q&A. We have received some questions, but in case you have any additional questions that we haven't tackled, feel free to put it up in the chat room. We're going to keep that monitored. All right, great. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Amna Rada. I manage the Aviation X Lab. I have my colleague with me, Najoud, who is not feeling too well, so she's going to be on mute for today's call. The both of us lead the Aviation X Lab. The Aviation X Lab launched, I want to say, almost 3 years now. And it launched out of Emirates Towers in Dubai with a main objective of really transforming what aviation and mobility is going to be. We have 5 key partners with us: Emirates Airline, Airbus, Collins Aerospace, GE, and Thales. And the way that we have set the lab is to work collectively with the partners, in addition to brightest mind across the globe, to work on co-creating solutions and really targeting our moonshots. I say moonshot because the way that Aviation X Lab was designed is to draft a moonshot and then work towards achieving that moonshot. Moonshot is your mission impossible statement, so it's really your end goal. And then what we do in between is trying to reach that end goal. This is cycle 2 of Aviation X Lab. We launched cycle 1 last year. Cycle 1 was focused entirely on sustainability and really how do you achieve a more sustainable travel industry. For cycle 2, if we can just jump Najut to the focus areas so we can have the slides with us. Thank you. Yeah. All right, yeah, you can just pause there. For cycle 2, our main, just one slide behind, thank you. For cycle 2, our main mission was to really understand what is today's experience for a traveler, and then how do you bring joy back to the journey? Why do we say joy back into the journey? Because we understand that the last, I want to say, 18 months have been extremely challenging on the travel industry, but also for the passengers as well. And so our mission is to really identify what are the pain points and how can we transform those pain points into opportunities. We've defined 3 specific areas in our exercise, and those areas are doorway to runway, in-flight, connections, and transfers. Doorway to runway is basically your entire airport experience from the second that you book your ticket all the way to the door of the plane. Your in-flight experience, as it explains, is your entire in-flight experience. And then your connections and transfers are for those who are using the airport as a hub. For today's session, we're going to focus entirely on the in-flight experience. Just jump to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah. Can we just jump to the council slide? Because I just want to introduce the council members before we jump into the details. Thank you. Now, before we jump into what in-flight means and really the different opportunities around it, I want to take the time to introduce our council members. The council members are part of the Aviation X Lab team as well, and their entire objective is to validate the ideas that we are going to be receiving, giving us different insight into technology and research areas. But once the startups are also onboarded, the council members are going to work with the startups in terms of validating their ideas, their proposal, supporting them on their financials, as well as their POC. So they're going to be sort of your anchors moving forward, not only for the validation point, but also once you're selected as part of the Aviation X Lab program. Without further ado, I'll just quickly run through the council members that we have on the call with us. If you can just introduce yourselves, council members, for the call. Thank you. So we'll start with Patrick, that I have with me right here. Patrick is from Thales. Patrick, I'll have you introduce yourself and sort of your engagement with Aviation X Lab.
Sure, thank you, Amna, and hi everyone. Really happy to be here with you on this webinar. My name is Patrick Zouraib. I'm working for Thales as a Director of Account Management for the Civil Aerospace domain. As part of my responsibilities, I'm also part of the operations team and representing Thales in the Aviation X Lab program. It is a real pleasure to be here. So my role in Thales is to overlook all the aerospace products and activities for the civil side in the UAE, and part of it is the Aviation X Lab.
Thank you, Patrick. And just a quick background. So Thales is also part of the Thales Design Center team. Well, his team is part of the Task Design Center team, and he supports that team. So we're going to run you a bit more in depth as to the different workshops that we conducted to really understand what are the pain points that the passengers are experiencing today, specifically in flight. I'll just jump to our next council member. Gary, I know we have you on the call. If you don't mind just quickly introducing yourself for the crowd.
No problem. Hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Gary Wicks. I have two hats. So one, I'm the Innovation Federation lead for Airbus. So therefore, I coordinate with all other innovation units across the Airbus group. But my main core job is I'm actually principal venture architect for Airbus Scale. So Airbus Scale is a new innovation unit in Airbus dedicated to creating disruptive companies. So we're very happy to support this activity through X Lab, where I was going to say it was like one of the fathers of X Lab. I'm now beginning to feel like one of the grandfathers, but I'm still very happy to be at the origin. So looking very much forward to this second cycle.
Thank you, Gary. I think just to give some insight, so when the Aviation X Lab was first founded, there were a couple of members who have been with us from the very start. And when I say start, I literally mean drafting the legal agreement. And so Gary has been one of them. And if anyone has any questions about the program or the objective and kind of the vision behind it, he will be the person to answer these questions. Thank you, Gary. I know we have one final council members who joined us recently, I want to say, Mark from GE. Mark, if you just want to give a couple of quick words as to what you do with GE. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Mark Stein. I'm with the GE Research Center in New York, and I lead the technology portfolio for our aviation business. So I own the full life cycle of our technology R&D for new product, new programs, as well as fielded products.
Thank you, Mark. Fantastic. I've actually heard a lot of interesting things about the GE Research Center.
Yes, we have lots of interesting things going on.
All right, super. Keen to learn more in the next couple of webinars. Thank you, Mark. All right. Without any further ado, what I'd like to do now is just to jump really in depth into the in-flight experience. Now, I'm going to hand it over to the council members in a couple of minutes just to run you through the mindset behind it. But just to set some context, the reason that this was selected as, I want to say a pain point, but also opportunity point, is from two perspectives. Obviously, the in-flight experience is really where you as a passenger spend the most amount of time on board the flight. But in addition to that, it's also the part that's been drastically impacted pre and post-COVID, I want to say. And so while there are a lot of restrictions that we still have to deal with, unfortunately, because of COVID, that also draws out a lot of different opportunities that we can try to navigate in this new reality. I'm going to hand it over to Patrick, who was part of the workshop that we conducted as well, just to give some insight behind why this is a focus area and sort of what's working around it as well.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Effectively, when we look at how we define together the Cycle 2 moonshot, and after it we'll get into the in-flight part of it. I'll start maybe with the workshop that Thales Design Center helped the different partners of Aviation X Lab to put together, which is mainly about gathering all the different stakeholders, whether the partners themselves, the travelers, and other stakeholders in the travel industry, around one place, and with remote as well, thanks to because of COVID, in order to look and map all the travel journey from A to Z, starting from the moment you book your ticket until the moment you reach your destination. And when we looked at all these touch points we have in our travel experience itself, we mapped and we tried to highlight the different pain points that were highlighted or the areas that we can enhance. And effectively in our industry, which is a passionate industry, we have a lot of areas that we can enhance, a lot of areas that we can improve, and also areas that were recently impacted either by the COVID crisis or previous pandemic or previous crisis we had throughout the years. So the idea was to segment them, and we came up with the big title of The Joy of Journey Redefined. And to make it clearer, we went into segmenting such a journey into, I would say, 3 parts. The first one, which was the webinar of the previous week, if I'm not mistaken, I invite the ones who could not attend to have a look at it on the YouTube channel, which is Doorway to Runway. And this one is about the in-flight. So I'll focus more on in-flight, subject of this webinar, where we're looking at the whole experience from the moment we step in the aircraft, at the door of the aircraft, until we reach our destination, the landing. So this journey itself, the in-flight, has a lot of assets and a lot of areas that can be looked at, improved, and I will go deeper on that. Amna, you let me know how you want to structure the discussion. And then the third segment, just not to lose the 3 pillars I was mentioning earlier about the moonshot, is the transfer and the connections, which is dedicated to the hubs, such as the DXP, for instance. So these are the 3 segments we define, and we will hopefully go more deeper on the in-flight one of it.
Thank you, Patrick. I'd like to also call on Gary, because Gary, you were part of that workshop with us as well, and obviously being in Airbus and the field that you're in, it'd be interesting to understand from your point of view sort of the different innovations when it comes to in-flight, but also why is it a priority area as well?
Thanks, Amina. Well, we talk about onboard. As an ex-avionics engineer, we like to think more about pilots perhaps and the control and flight of the aircraft, but remembering that the people who actually pay for us to all to exist are the people who sit in the cabin, and the cabin is the major touch point for most people when they journey. Airbus, I'm trying to say, has set many of the standards linked to cabin with our airline partners, and most recently with our introduction of products like airspace. But we cannot relax, and I particularly attracted to the onboard because we're now at a paradoxical period where it used to be you shut the door and you're in the cabin, but that is no longer true. We shut the door and you're still part of a connected world. So here we have to strike the balance between this continuous experience that continues to the ground and also the unique experience that we can bring on board. And as an innovator, that I find as a very attractive and inspiring contradiction to work on. So we're very much looking forward to the submissions we get as part of Cycle 2 to see the new thinking and the new ways we can think and reinvent the experience on board, but in the context of the end-to-end experience we introduced in the last session last week.
Thank you, Gary. And I think you mentioned a fantastic point where it really is end-to-end, and that's exactly what we want to work on innovating, where it's not a fragmented experience. It really is a joyful experience throughout the entire chain. Thank you, Gary. All right, Mark, I just wanted to see if there's anything that you would like to add from GE's point of view as well.
Nothing particular to this one. I'm focused more on the turbo machinery myself, so I'm just curious to see where this conversation takes us.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, Mark. All right, perfect.
Maybe, Amna, you want me probably just to touch base on, again, the in-flight segment, because Gary did a very good introduction on this segment itself. And it's true, we talk a lot about this captive audience in a way for some of the people looking at the revenue streams inside the cabin. And you were right, Gary, to clarify, we're looking at the passenger side, actually, not in the cockpit side of it, even if in the end of the day we need them to fly. So when we focus on the passenger and the in-flight itself, the in-flight experience, effectively at Thales, we are looking at the overall journey starting from the ground, where we covered it in our previous webinar with the doorway to runway, and how we link it to the aircraft, how the journey can be as seamless as possible, as connected as possible, instead of, I like your image earlier that you mentioned about shutting the door. Previously, it was a mean to disconnect from everything going on the ground, and now we're looking more at replicating or continuing our experience we have on the ground and deliver it to the sky. And that's why we mentioned in the segment the in-flight, a hotel-like experience in the air. So the question marks that are raised is why we have to be on a different internet connection speed when we are in the aircraft compared to when we are on the ground. Why the Netflix-like experience is not something we have in the aircraft, etc., etc. Why the catering is instead of being a joyful moment, as you mentioned, Amna, it's sometimes a painful moment when you know the food is served on the during the flight is not convenient. The preference is not here, depending on the different travelers. So how we look at making that journey more personalized, how we look at, from an operation side of it, look at optimizing the different operations, whether it is on catering, whether it is on any other element that is on the aircraft, how we optimize the crew operations, how we link whatever we have as information and data on the ground to the aircraft itself, and how we make sure that this information is continued at the destination, and how we can anticipate the objective of the travel, whether it is for tourism, whether it is for business, it doesn't matter what is the objective of the travel. For all the purposes of the travel, will have to be ready to provide to the passenger a mean for him to continue his journey, whichever it is going in whichever direction. So all these, let's say, challenges and pain points we raised when we were doing the workshop together and trying to brainstorm helped us to define this as a proper segment. It has the merit to be a proper segment and has the merit to be deep dive in terms of technologies that can enhance this segment and can eventually bring a revolution to this segment.
I think those are fantastic points, Patrick. And just to add to it, obviously, one of the tagline I want to say that we have for Inflight is to sort of shift it to a hotel in the sky experience. Why would you say that's important? And if you want to talk about crazy ideas, what could those be?
Well, crazy ideas would be, well, I'm not sure if it is even crazy as of today. Things that we used to say it's crazy is happening today. Having the TV on board, streaming, having a shower, or it could be to the luxury side of it, or it could be to the entertainment side of it. But having this similar experience of at home to be delivered in the sky is something that by itself is perfect. Having the internet connection and the internet speed that allows the different use cases on board is something very important. Having the ability to continue watching a movie that we started, for example, on the ground and taking it in the sky, and why not continue again at the destination level. We don't have to manually, log in and authenticate ourselves when we are sitting in front of an in-flight entertainment platform. We can use the biometrics, we can use the facial recognition technologies, and then can go more and more effectively into an immersive type of experience inside the aircraft. The wellness part of it as well is important. We're investing a lot on this aspect. How we make sure that we're taking care of our passengers, the stressing type of passengers, and the business type of travelers, or the tourists that are looking for a holiday travel. So these are the elements that I would think of. Maybe not that crazy, to be honest, because we're deep dive into the real stuff. But connecting, though, just think about something crazy. Connecting whatever you have on the ground and bringing it to the aircraft would be amazing. Where I just imagine myself walking all the way from the airport till the aircraft without having barriers, without having any any 7-8 checks and 9 papers to print and 7 forms to fill. Things like this, could be maybe crazy as of today, but possible tomorrow.
Absolutely, Patrick. I think, like we said, we always say crazy when aviation, but end of the day, it's a tube in the sky, so that is crazy. We are working with the reality of that. Gary, I know that you are quite well traveled, and I know that you had a lot of different input and feedback, especially on the personas aspect and how you want to cater that experience to different passengers. I'd love if the team with us on the call can get your insights as well on this.
Could you elaborate a bit more? Because that's a very wide topic.
Absolutely. All right. So, how during the workshop, I think one of the discussion points we had is, if you look at any specific solution, right? Maybe your business traveler would be suited towards a different solution, whereas your family travelers, they would want something more. So, as an innovator, right?
Yeah, and like many people, I've had mixed experiences. I think one of the absolute privileges of working for a company like Airbus is that you do get to travel business class on an Emirates A380. And to me, again, there's maybe the first class is the best experience, but the business class is pretty impressive. But as a family guy as well, we've made many travels in the back. And for me, we must always consider that it's not just one experience on board, it is a set of experiences. It is trying to bring joy to everybody, irrespective of the price of your ticket. Obviously, you pay for a certain class of standard of service. So this is always a challenge for us. It's easy to think that the experience must always be you pay a lot more and you get the better experience. But honestly, we believe strongly that everybody is entitled and deserves the best experience for which they can afford. And I think collectively we're falling a little bit short there. And you mentioned a few moments ago, it used to be closing the door and you had that contained environment. But we spent a lot of time and effort looking at what we call moments and episodes. And you know what? You can do great stuff on board, but then you get a bad episode just before or just after, and it can destroy your whole journey. This is why the end-to-end again is so important, that we need to raise the bar end-to-end to add even more enjoyment and value as in the areas we can better control, if that's the right word. So I want us to think about not just having business class for everybody, which I would dearly love, but actually how we actually bring the joy to anybody who decides to step onto an aircraft and to go somewhere. So it's more than about the destination, which is very important. But why isn't the journey a part of the experience and the thrill, which it used to be? So I'm hoping that we can recover the spirit probably of the 1950s, and I was not around then. I was not even thought of then. But that seemed to be sort of a golden age of aviation. It was exotic. It was what rich people did. It was fantastic. And then we democratized it, which is great. It's opened up the world. And now it's time to bring back the little special, the little secret sauce, a little something we can bring on, irrespective of the row in the cabin, whether you're up deck or up top or on the main deck or on two deck. It should be a great experience for everybody, or tailored to the specific needs and ability, but it should still be a great experience for everybody.
Thank you, Gary. I think that's a fantastic point, because one thing that we always look at, and it happens naturally, is that obviously premium passengers will get a different experience and economy will have a different experience. But I think having that objective of how do you not only unify that experience, but ensure that each of them is having a joyful experience in a different manner, sort of what we will obviously try to achieve.
Effectively, when I'm thinking of what Gary and you mentioned, when we look at it relates with what we're trying to achieve in Thales at the in-flight entertainment section of the business, or the in-flight connectivity, we're looking at transforming, and we are in it, and we achieved it, and we continue to enhance it. The IFE or the IFC, which was more of a broadcast platform, into more of an engagement platform. So the platform will look at engaging with you, will look at increasing your loyalty, but also it will look at understanding your profile. It will look at personalizing your experience, whether it is from advertisement, whether it is for movies, whether it is for shopping. It will increase definitely the ancillary revenues, which is key for the airline. But if you look at the passenger, again, our user-centric approach, the fact that we're tending towards an engagement platform is key. And this technology will help us to bridge maybe that barrier of comfort between economy, premium economy, business, and first. Definitely, we cannot do it only by the engagement platform or unify it per se, but we can deliver that same level of experience or entertainment, at least from that angle, to the different classes equally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you rightfully said entertainment is one of the things that you always look forward to when you go on board a plane, because you are there for X number of hours. So ensuring that it's personalized to a stage where you know what you're going to get, but you're also excited about that, is really going to transform that experience. So absolutely.
Exactly.
Thank you. All right. I'm just going to pause there just in case there's any specific questions when it comes to in-flight before we move on to the next part of the webinar. All right, let's just check. All right, all is okay. Patrick, we actually had one question that I think you might be able to help us with, and we received that online, is that when people come to apply, and especially when it comes to in-flight, I think the question is, does it take too long to onboard innovations when it comes to obviously onboarding it onboard the plane? And if yes, what are the reasons behind it?
Well, when we look at onboarding any technology in general in the aviation, and specifically when it comes onboard to a flying platform, there are a lot of regulations and a lot of certifications that will come into the picture. It is true that we say it's very easy to implement any technology on the ground, but it takes more time, and unfortunately, it's more complicated to bring it to the aircraft. So the different requirements when we're looking at a technology from a hardware perspective, all this will apply. You know, there is a set of standards that has to be respected, a set of certifications that has to be respected before being able to consider that equipment can be installed on an aircraft. Even if we're not talking about primary flight controls such as the engine or the wings of the aircraft to be clear, but though we're looking at adding a piece of hardware to the aircraft, so there are more constraints. Then if we look at the software side of it, it is easier. Definitely there are a different type and different set of testing and system acceptance tests that are required, even replicating the environment of an aircraft on the ground, but the approach or the process may be easier when it comes to a software compared to a hardware. But in both cases, yes, that's the tricky part in aviation, and sometimes was considered as one of the reasons why there is a small gap between what you see on the ground and you deliver on the aircraft. However, the OEMs, Airbus, and the different manufacturers are helping in this segment. Us as suppliers and manufacturers of aviation systems, we're also looking at having an agile process to develop quickly in a rapid way to allow ourselves to deliver that technology on the aircraft in a very quick manner. So indeed, these are things to take in consideration, but the processes are getting more and more agile and quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, if you speak about 10, 15 years ago, having these programs to onboard innovations was very rare, whereas today that's become really the standard source of innovation. So I think it really is
and I would say thanks to, you know, digital as well. When digital came in the picture, we look in a very concrete manner at having a lot of asset on the ground and using the connectivity itself to deliver the output to the aircraft instead of filling and packing the aircraft with equipments and additional burden. At the end of the day, whether it is weight, it's the enemy of aviation, whether it is processes and certification, we don't want to look at this. So thanks to this digital transformation, we are able to deliver a lot and a lot of features without the necessity of adding burden on the aircraft itself.
Yeah, absolutely. These are fantastic points. Thank you, Patrick. We've got one additional question that I think, Gary, this was targeted specifically at Airbus, so feel free to answer or decline. But I think the question we got is, what is one of the most exciting innovations that have been put on board a plane and why?
That's a...
I don't know if that was by someone from
Gary,
the group
you can take a seat.
No. It depends. I tell you, I tell you, if we were talking generically about aircraft, to me, Airbus really transformed the world when we did fly-by-wire. But let's park that for the moment and come back into the cabin. I don't think it's right to consider just one. It's a combination of things. When we talk about experience, it'd be too easy to think there's like a silver bullet, a magic solution. We do one thing. Experience is a combination of factors, combination of senses. So, for example, an important early consideration on the 320 family was we went for a wider cabin. That wider cabin translates into a much more spacious environment, bigger bins, higher headroom, which directly influences the passenger comfort and satisfaction. Things like the air pressure. So to me, we don't, from an Airbus perspective, we don't look at the pieces, we look at the whole, because there are so many interacting elements between humidity, air, lighting, and we sort of, one of the things that excited me a few years ago when we introduced mood lighting and the stars on the ceiling. What started off as like sort of a little bit of a crazy innovation ideation session really was turned into something very valuable for many customers. So from little sparks, you get to real value. So to me, it's the most exciting thing is the overall set of things we've been able to do and continue to do, particularly on the range of flexibility in the cabin, the new seat options. We used to have 3 classes, and now we're up to 5 and even 6 classes. So I think this better adapting, or the measures to better adapt to the market, to passenger needs, to be more we call hyper relevant in that sense is exciting. So I personally look for the combination of things as opposed to the one thing in this instance. But I'm an embedded system engineer, so it's always going to be flyable wire. So I was of that age.
That is such a fantastic response, because it really fits perfectly in terms of trying to create that holistic journey, but also looking at not only one single innovation, but clusters of innovation that really can deliver that overall experience. And the fact when you mentioned different things relating to the passenger comfort, I think as flyers, we sometimes take for granted the different things that are taking place behind the scenes, like the humidity or like the bigger bin and these things. But yeah, thanks for kind of sharing light on those. Appreciate it. All right, we got one question in the chat, Robin. Robin, do you mind maybe just sharing the question live with the team, and then one of the council members can pick it up, just so I do you justice in explaining the question? Are you with us, Robin?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We do.
Hello, could you repeat the question? You're seeking clarification of my question.
Yes, just because we have the council members, and I thought it's better just to come directly from you, so they can.
Hey, that's fantastic. Thanks for that opportunity.
Right.
Yeah, just to clarify, obviously the opportunity to look at future mobility for onward travel is with us and evolving rapidly. Specifically, giving the passenger the option to choose and select the onward form of travel in the air is one particular aspect. And of course, if we're looking to the future, that could well incorporate the concept of flying taxis, which is very much the space that the company that I'm working with in the UK is involved in. So on the near horizon, we could potentially create a mobility as a service app, for want of a better word, that would incorporate such things like as a flying taxi. Now, I just wanted to clarify whether that could, for this particular challenge, be in scope, because it would be feasible to bring together a consortium to bid for that particular opportunity.
Thank you so much for that question, Robin. I'm going to give it to the council member, or should I like me to address it?
Go ahead, and can comment from my side, or Gary. I don't know.
Can I just ask a clarification? I'm not quite catching the question. Is it the flying taxi, or is it the app that brings some sort of multimodal choice to the passenger?
Thank you. It's in fact both.
Okay.
So, and because it's a moonshot opportunity, the emerging flying taxis, which will be, in our opinion, within the next 2 to 3 years, be in operation. And I know, of course, Dubai has been exploring this for a number of years. The opportunity to build a complete multi-module selection. So where are you going? This is a way that you could travel. Really an extension of the many apps that are currently available to give passengers choice. And the reason why I'm looking at the flying taxi opportunity is because it has significant implications for all the Aviation X Lab partners, if that is a door that you wish at this stage to open.
I think it clarifies, I don't know, Gary, for you, the approach that Robin is trying to pitch, which is more, I think, if I understood correctly, Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, which is more related to exploring the UAS, the drone side of the ecosystem to complement the aviation in the mobility segment. Is that a right statement? Where are you looking? UAS
it is a right statement. I'm looking at and I'm positioning it as, okay, it's not here now, but within the next decade and possibly 2 to 3 years, it could well be part of the solution. But it's a big issue that countries and cities around the world are looking at now. So I just wanted to align with the ambitions of the Aviation X Lab challenge, whether that is, in your opinion, within scope.
Again, I'm still not perhaps catching it, so I'll give you an idea. So if we were discussing an app from the point of view of a traveler, passenger, that would be future-proofed, then yes, that would be in scope, because we want to include any evolution of the industry in any direction. And absolutely, urban mobility is very strongly part of that. If it were the suggestion that there would be another development of a flying vehicle, personally, the X Lab campaign now is not really set up to do that.
No, I appreciate what you're saying there. The vehicles actually exist, and over the next 2 to 3 years would be certificated. It's whether at this stage you wish to explore that particular opportunity. I understand why you might not, but the vehicles, in our opinion, will be certificated within the next 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big, I understand, a big strategic decision for at a corporate level that you may wish at this stage not to embrace, which I understand, but that does mean that some of the consortia partners that I would wish to bring to the table would not be involved at this stage, and that's the purpose for asking the question.
Again, I'm not quite, I apologize for not quite catching it, but from speaking on behalf of Airbus, we are a major player in urban mobility. So we're interacting with most of the vehicle producers today.
Yeah.
So I would say,
as indeed are we. So taking a step back, what I might summarize is that maybe a mobility app which excludes at this stage until the vehicles are certificated, that could be within scope.
No, I wouldn't do that. As a system architect, I always like to future-proof. So I would make sure there are the functionalities and features and interfaces built in that allows a natural growth and scaling towards any other form of element or service of the infrastructure and so on. So I'd always want to future-proof it. So that would, to me, would be in scope.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's really clear. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Robin. And thank you, everyone. I think this was such an enlightening discussion. Appreciate all the contributions. Just because we have 5 minutes left to the call, I just want to jump ahead through the rest of the agenda that we have. Again, any additional questions that you might have, please email it to myself or Najood, and we'll be happy to share that with the council members. We do have one more webinar taking place next week. It is going to be on connections and transfers, but if we do have additional time, then we can always tackle other questions. All right, so just very quick and high level, in terms of who can apply for the Aviation X Lab program, we are looking for startups at different stages. So if you are at the idea stage, you are welcome to submit your application. The only reservation that we have is that in the proposal, it needs to be very clear that your idea can mature in the next 18 months into an MVP. So that's the only restriction that we have. I'm just gonna jump into the next slide. Thank you, Najood. Very high level again, where we are with the application. So we're currently in our sourcing stage, which is when all of the applications are open, and you can go and submit your application. I'll show you the portal in just a minute. This will then go into the verification interview, which is verification round. And there's 3 rounds of verification, which is conducted by the council members, then by the operations team, and then finally by the board members. The final selection of any startup gets conducted by the Aviation X Lab board members. In terms of the onboarding stage, we will notify you by the 2nd week of April if you have been selected, and then we're going to go through the next stage of the program. Just jump to the next slide, Najood. Yeah. Again, just super high level, what happens once you've been selected? We do have a rapid feasibility stage that takes place in Dubai, but prior to that stage, we have a virtual feasibility stage, which is basically when you get connected one-on-one to each of the partners, their council team and their operations team. The main objective behind that is for you to share your ideas, your proposal, seek validation, input, support, mentorship from the council, so that once you arrive into Dubai, you're ready to execute your POC. Then we have pitch day, which is when you get to pitch your product and your trial as well to both the Aviation X Lab board members, as well as the operations team and the council members, and it will also include external investors and members of the ecosystem. And then, of course, the board members will take a look at your proposal, and you can pitch for 2 sort of investment: time investment and, of course, a financial investment. The time investment can be to get an extension on the program for up to 3 years, and a financial investment will depend on how you draft your proposal. Right, just the next slide. Thank you. Again, where we are with the timeline, we're currently in Feb. The applications will close end of March. We then take a period between March and April to validate, shortlist, and do the final selection. We then start the rapid feasibility virtually from April until mid-summer. Summer is when you're going to be coming into Dubai to spend the 3 months, and then October is when demo day and the showcase in Dubai will be taking place. All right, I think that brings us, yes, just the final slide. In terms of program offerings, now we do offer, I don't want to call it seed money, but we do offer a lump sum. It's 50,000 dirhams, which is equivalent to 13,500 US dollars. And that really is an expense account to cover your expenses once you're in Dubai. But non-monetary gains that you get as well is obviously access to all of the 5 partners and being able to work with all of them. We also have a hub out of the XB airport to test and trial the solutions. And of course, you'll be doing that in conjunction with the 5 partners as well. Those of you who are selected, you will be connected to Dubai Future Foundation startup ecosystem. And that means you get to set up your license in Dubai should you wish. And you'll also be an established entity, and it will be a lot easier, they can facilitate that process a lot easier in comparison to the standard way. You'll also have the opportunity to apply for the UAE Golden Visa, which is the entrepreneurial visa. All right, I believe, yeah, obligations, again, just basically means what you should and shouldn't do if you get selected. So if you're selected, the only restriction that we have is that you are fully committed for the 3 months of the program that do take place in Dubai, the rapid feasibility part. However, the virtual feasibility part, that's absolutely fine if you're working or if you're a student or if you have any other commitments. We only require you full-time during that period in Dubai. And I think that brings us to the last slide, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, how to apply. My colleague Nujud handles all of the application process. It's quite simple. Nujud, are you feeling well to run them through this, or should I go ahead and do it?
Yeah, I can do that. Sorry, excuse my voice.
I know
Okay.
we're time, but you just stay with us for just 1 more minute, and Nujud
Yeah.
will wrap it up quickly. Thank you.
Okay, so basically I will just put it again. So basically you will find our website on our social media accounts, and also I will write it down in the chat section. You can go ahead and visit our website, and you will find how to apply on using F-Success platform. It is simple, and you can register using your LinkedIn account, Facebook, or using your email. So it is simple steps. You just have to answer some couple of questions from the Aviation X Lab, and then you have it set. Thank you. And you have any questions, I have already put my email and Amna's as well. Thank you. Okay, all set, Amna. Thank you.
We were on mute. Thank you so much for that, Nujud. Thank you for everyone who participated. Again, we're always reachable on email. We put our Gmail just because it's so much easier to access the Gmail. Nujud and I both monitor it, so if you have any questions, if you want to set up some time, we're more than happy to do that. We do have one webinar left, which is going to be next week on connections and transfers. So please do join that if you want to gain insight into that specific area as well. Thank you all for being with us, and have a great evening. Thanks, council members.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.